Hello internet, my name is Lave and it's that time of year again. London Film Festival is happening right now. I went along and I watched Beautiful Boy, which is directed by Belgian director Felix van Groeningen, probably mispronouncing that. His latest is based on the memoirs of real-life father and son David and Nic Scheff, the latter of whom is addicted to opium amongst other drugs, and the film is an honest examination of the cycle of addiction and how it affects the entire family, but predominantly the relationship between the father and son. So not a happy, cheery, feel-good film to kick off my London Film Festival experience, I have to say. I wasn't aware of the director going into this. I went to this one purely based on the trailer, which showed that it had real pedigree in terms of its producers and the actors in front of camera. So let's start there with the performances. Timothée Chalamet follows on from his Oscar-worthy performance in Call Me By Your Name to deliver another Oscar-worthy performance as this everyday kid on a slippery slope of self-destruction. He's a good kid at heart, he's intelligent with a talent for writing, but his drug addiction is so destructive and his performance is so accomplished physically and emotionally. It feels like an authentic representation of a good kid doing the wrong things because of his addiction. It's an incredibly nuanced performance. You can see the internal struggle as this good kid fades away in the bad times as he does bad things, and the film does a good job of explaining how the drugs that he's taking affect his brain and the dopamine levels and how it changes his personality, and his performance completely captures that. Steve Carell delivers a solid performance as his father David. The pair do have good chemistry, so it is heartbreaking to see him go through bewilderment at first to frustration and desperation to the realization that he might not be able to help his son. As I say, it's a solid performance, but on occasions in the more dramatic moments when his stress levels are rising and his voice gets more and more agitated, it did remind me of some of his more comedic characters like Evan from Bruce Almighty or Brick, Sweet Brick from Anchorman. It's a shame that my thought process took me there, because I think underneath it all, if you get through it, there is a good heartfelt performance there, but I couldn't help but go there in my thought process.
I love Lamp.
Maura and Amy Ryan play Nick's stepmother and real mother retrospectively. They could have been given more to do. The real mother, for example, is barely in it until the final act. Maura is good with what she's been given. She does have quite a decent scene which reflects her and David's plight to help Nick, in a scene where she gets in her car and she chases after him and it's just completely futile. There could have been more scenes like that, but then it would have expanded the runtime, which already is 2 hours long, and it is a bit of a slog, and maybe it is a good representation of the memoirs. I don't know, I haven't read the source material, but it is very clear that the director and everyone else involved are passionate about the source material and have adapted it sensitively and authentically, taking a non-linear approach in its presentation with subtle flashbacks to happier times and key moments in their lives, and it works pretty well. For example, whenever David and Nick say goodbye to each other, they don't say goodbye, they just say everything, and the flashbacks fill you in as to how and why that came about in some really touching scenes. There are numerous other examples of David reflecting on their lives and how things could have played out maybe differently, but it does get a bit repetitive in that sense. I wonder if the director filmed a lot of the scenes and liked them so much that he couldn't find it in his heart to cut those scenes, which are good, but I think that aspect of the film does get a bit repetitive as it catches up with where it started and then we flash back to another happier time. There is a theme about the cycle of addiction, which is rehab, relapse, rehab and relapse, and I wish it could have concentrated more on that, but instead it will go to another flashback scene, which, as I say, is just a bit repetitive. It's a minor problem though, and the only other one I can think of is the inclusion of a score, a musical score. I think in general the musical choices are very good, which includes John Lennon's Beautiful Boy appropriately, but there is a score which appears every now and again when something bad is going to happen, this whom, and I would argue that it wasn't necessary. I think the actors involved and the overall presentation representation is good enough for it not to be there. There is an example later on in the film when David goes to his other kids' school play and he's reflecting, thinking about Nick, and all of the rest of the sound is muted and it works just as effectively without sound. So that's my thoughts on Beautiful Boy, and pause the video if you want to take a closer look at my enjoyment tracker now. It's one of those films that you can't really say that you enjoy because of the subject matter, but you certainly can appreciate it. I think it has been delicately and sensitively made. The performances are very good. I think Timothée Chalamet does elevate it. It was really nice to see him and Steve Carell turn up on stage and see that the chemistry is just as good in real life. Terrible suit from Timothée Chalamet though. But it's not a film that I can say that I'm going to be watching over and over again, but still a good watch and a good start to my London Film Festival. I've got a few more films coming up. I'm not seeing as many as I'd like, but you know, I've got to work and time constraints and I'm skint as well. But keep an eye out for the other films, and thanks very much for watching this review. As always, I really do appreciate it. If you can, give this video a like and don't forget to share the lave.
Carpet.